Hey everybody, welcome to Skill Check. I'm your host, Dave Garrett, and I'm joined with the one, the only, the Colin. We're going to be going over the Leviathan Tournament Companion. This came out about a week ago now. We're a little bit behind on it. But we're just going to go over it and just talk about what all really this changes. This doesn't really change a whole lot. There's a FAQ and stuff. But basically what this is the tournament pack that will basically tell you what missions to play together for actually attending a tournament, and some errata to the cards and some layouts. So basically it's just going to tell you turn mission, place objective markers, yada yada. We already know all of this stuff. This stuff isn't really anything new. I believe they do comment on this in the designer's note that you can stand on objectives where this comes from. But we're going to move into the updated Leviathan card update. Primary mission deploy service goal. Note that one condition cannot be commutative, so you can't have all three of these triggers on the card, so it makes the card invalid as it is. So you don't get, You don't get 15 points for having one objective basically in the deployment zone. You have to have multiple objectives to do it. The other one is deploy teleport homers is worth 3 in the middle now. I think it was 2 before or something like that. Maybe it was 4 points. I don't remember the exact one because they don't have the old text next to it. Was behind enemy lines or 5 VP is it's tactical instead of the 4. And it's just changing the numbers to being 3 instead of the 4 VP. Yep. Nothing crazy, but does change the cards. They're very different. All in all. What are you going to say, Colin?
I think it's crazy that we've already released these index cards, and I think a majority of them have.
Yeah. Yeah, them having problems is not ideal.
Between the army as well as the mission cards.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's crazy how much they've gotten wrong. Okay, the Leviathan tournament mission pool is actually like the biggest thing to talk about in all of this. This basically tells you what mission layouts to play with what mission rules and what deployment zones with layouts. We're going to talk about the layouts after this, but this basically dictates how we're basically going to play a bunch of the edition. I think once terrain, we know what terrain looks like from GW and stuff. This is going to really impact a lot because now we have actual layouts of like how they're supposed to be laid out on these missions. So there's a lot more like solving of the game and like what units go where and like on these missions, how good they are and how well they like relevantly impact on certain stats being higher.
Yeah, as a TO, it's pretty nice to actually have this kind of layout. That way we know what way that it's supposed to be played and
Yeah, instead of leaving it up to the players to kind of figure it out.
our best guess of tournament layout. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, terrain layout. Area terrain is supposed to be represented by the dotted lines, the gray. And this is basically the acrylic piece you'd see under terrain sometimes to represent standing wholly within a terrain feature so you don't have to measure from corner to corner. You know if your model's in or not. Interesting though, we did talk about like having a layout, but then they say no fixed measurements, so it's like but like you have to have some sort of fixed measurements on this. It's kind of hard not to have some sort of almost fixed measurement. Objective markers sometimes will be hidden within terrain pieces or placed open, but the markers themselves should not be within inside of walls or similar elements. It just stops the actual marker itself from being weird and just like having problems. And people always just take this as weird that like no area terrain was supposed to be on top of the objective. No, it's just the marker, and the marker is it's only walls specifically. Use of runes, basically the only pieces they use. And then the suggested ruin walls, walls shown with a thin line are under 2 inches in height and never more than 4 inches in height. While the larger sections, the big like square sections, are supposed to be always more than 4 in height, so things can't go over them like knights and stuff. Which kind of changed a lot of how terrain was in the last edition. This is the thing that turns a lot of TOs off and has a lot of gripes in the community at the moment. Because just not a lot of people has terrain like this.
Yeah, it is a lot of terrain. Um, yeah, I think we went from. I think these new terrain layouts are actually like times and a half
They're just so very different from the fundamental of how
of
we
what they
built.
used to be. So it
Well,
does feel bad.
it's just so different than how it used to be. It's just like completely different, like ideal.
Yeah,
Because just looking at this, you can see there's a whole bunch of areas, and this is where towering is kind of crazy. Towering can see through a whole bunch of these gray open spaces. There's actually like this is supposed to be obscuring. All of this is supposed to be obscuring, but anything with towering can just like easily see everything through this all the way to like here, which is crazy. They can see my mouse on my screen. I don't think Colin can, but yeah, you can see basically from the bottom left all the way to the top right, just past the top piece of obscuring. There's just so many
gotcha.
lines and stuff that interact with towering and stuff that's not really ideal for a lot of players. But the boards do look more promising, I will say. They do look more interesting.
Yeah, as a taking away knights and towering and that kind of stuff, and forgetting that indirect
Oh, I think Colin's cutting out
exists.
there.
These boards, I think, are very interesting. I mean, I think it. Oh, am I?
Oh,
Sorry,
there you are. You're
but
back.
I think the boards are very interesting. So
Yeah, I love the look of layout 1 and 2. 3 is okay. I think it's pretty good. It's got some major
that's a
lines of
firing
cheating.
lane.
Yeah,
That's
3
a
is
firing lane.
has some a big X firing lane basically. Uh,
Wasn't GW3 last edition also like
yeah,
a
GW
crazy firing
GW3
lane?
was worse than everything else. GW3 was actually just worse than everything else. I'm glad it did not have much time, if any, in the sun. Layout 4 I do like a lot. Layout 4 is also one I like a lot. So I think 1, 2, and 4 are great. And they also depend on missions. We might talk about that one day, each mission layout and how they interact with the mission because we know which ones the preset are for the missions. But the last relevant change is they kind of talk about how they want you to do pairings now. Um, so you should always go off win loss. Basically, is what they're saying. You should always go off of who like I won a game, you've won a game, we need to play in a tournament. But the weird thing is we're going away from points and going more towards strength of schedule. So if your opponents did good, you did good, which has a little bit less feeling of control to it because you obviously don't get to dictate who your opponents are. Um, and there's a little bit of feels bad in that, but I do think it is a better system with how random the secondary cards are and how few your points are. I like the point system a lot back in the day when you had more control over what you did as a game plan. But now with the more random element, I understand that it should probably be strength of schedule now. Especially with everybody being on the same missions and stuff. Thoughts, Colin? As a TO?
Yeah, I I think that I don't know. I think like the layout that they have is really good.
Yes. I think their broad layout to
Um,
start with is good.
yeah, I feel like every single time I choose what mission that we're going to be playing, I'm going to have to check this chart to see which terrain layouts work best. But hopefully over time it'll just become kind of normal.
Yeah, I'm
Um,
I'm excited to see the actual first GW board from like the GW events because that kind of dictates how everything else is built.
yeah, see our events. For any of you that are in the Dayton area, we host a RTT on typically the last Sunday of every month, or the one of the last two Sundays every month. Um, Bookery Battles, if you guys ever want to check it out. We use WTC terrain, so it's a little bit taller than the GW terrain. So I think it fixes some of the towering issues that are just inherently bad on the GW boards. So I think they'll then alter the GW layout to fit the WTC style of terrain, but
Yep.
it'll be good.
Yeah. Well, thank you all for joining us. We just want to go over this and cover it and just give you guys something different from our normal videos. Thank you. Make sure to like and subscribe, and we'll see you guys in the next one.
See ya.